I'm Ebony Tara Scurry, the career architect, and you are watching Careercraft. I help people earn more money and have more freedom with a successful career by their own standards. Welcome to Careercraft. So, for this episode, the first thing that I want to share with you is some workplace wisdom, and I want to talk to you about a really smoking hot, literally, industry that is now on the horizon. And this smoking hot industry, if you can't guess it already, is marijuana, cannabis. Yes, it's so interesting really because the labor market statistics are not touching this. They're completely ignoring it. But I know that many of you out there, this is on your radar. These are things you're thinking about. And with my clients and the kind of folks that I work with a very unique group of people. This is on their minds, and many of them are interested in this industry. And actually, there's a lot of money to be made. It's a new industry in terms of being legalized and still growing. And yes, it's not legalized everywhere yet, but it's up and coming, and there's a lot of opportunity out there. So if you're interested in a career in the legalized or medical marijuana industry, now is really the time to get moving and get your resume updated and do what you need to do to make yourself more credible and more competitive in this new market. Now, I want to share with you a couple of examples of what I'm talking about here. Okay, the first one is in March of 2004. Denver, Colorado. They actually hosted its very first marijuana industry job fair. Do you think this place was packed or not? Yeah, it was packed. There were people lined up. Now, again, we're in this economy, the Great Recession. It's kind of coming out, but we still have record numbers of job loss and all that stuff going on. So, a lot of career fairs have long lines. But this one had really long lines, particularly, even taking into consideration the economy we're in, there was a lot of interest here. And so what I'd like for you to do is to think in a very creative way about what you can do to better position yourself to stand out in this industry. Think about the type of experience you'll need to gain, the type of education and formal training you may need to get. Once you make yourself competitive, the floodgates will open and you will be ready. And there's all kinds of positions available. There are those positions that are traditionally in any business, like accounting, information technology, and then you're going to have those positions within this industry that are very specific to this industry, like people who work in a nursery to grow the little baby marijuana plants so they can grow up and people can enjoy them or use them for their medical use or what have you. Another thing I'd like to share with you as an example of what I'm talking about here is in February, just a couple months ago of this year, some brilliant Girl Scouts decided to do what? They went and they sold their cookies in front of a medical marijuana dispensary. That was pretty genius. And, I wonder who thought of that, but, in terms of the Girl Scouts deciding what they're going to do, but they sold their cookies there and it was just brilliant. Do you think they sold all their cookies? Yes. If you have some food to sell, go where people have the munchies. Go where people are hungry, right? So they actually sold a lot of cookies and it was all over the news. If you are serious about pursuing a career in the medical and legal marijuana industry, I have some things that I'd like for you to do. Okay. Number one, get a degree from one of the top agricultural schools out there. You're going to learn a lot of innovative industrial ways to grow things. Marijuana is grown indoors, it's grown outdoors. So if you go to one of these top agricultural schools, you're going to learn all about that stuff. And that stuff is really important to learn, whether or not you want to be in the marijuana industry for IT or to actually be in the nursery. It's still good to know about how it's grown and all that good stuff. Number two, as I mentioned a little earlier, not every marijuana job is in the nursery. So it's good to know about how it's grown and everything, but it's still a business like any other business. So they need their IT department, they need their HR department, they need, their legal department, all these other departments that have nothing to do with actually growing the medical marijuana. They still need these positions there. So if you have that skill or those skills, that's fantastic. That's already a really good first step into getting into the industry. However, I don't want you just to have a good step. I want you to be great. And a side note, good is one of the biggest enemies of great. Good, you can get satisfied with that, but we don't want you to be satisfied with that. We want you to really stand out. So, even if you have a degree in IT or HR or whatever those other things were that I mentioned, you still want to show on your resume that you have a passion for the industry. Okay? Because there's going to be other people qualifying for these positions that have degrees just like you. But you want to be the one to say, hey, I don't just have a degree in IT. I don't just have a degree in, whatever. I also have a passion. One of the ways to do that is to join or volunteer for marijuana advocacy groups. That sends a very clear message on your resume and on your cover letter that, hey, you have a passion about this, so much so that you're advocating for it. You're trying to get it out there in the limelight in some really legitimate ways. So that's how you can, just one of many reasons and ways you can show that you have passion for the industry. The fourth thing is go where the jobs are. Where are the jobs in the medical marijuana, the legal marijuana industry? Where are they? And that depends on your state, because legalized marijuana, it's not in every state. It's not federally legalized yet. It depends on what state that you're in. So if you want a job in the industry and it's not legal in your state, probably going to have to go out of state, okay? Depending on your state, there may be licenses that you need to get, so you want to look into those. Look into the residency requirements for getting some of those licenses. You want to know all these things before you just pick up and move hundreds, even thousands, of miles away. And the other thing is, the fifth thing is search on job niche websites. There are some specific niche websites out there that list only cannabis-related jobs. Isn't that great? Isn't that great that you can just go to a website and they can list legal medical marijuana jobs? So it's pretty simple to go and check those jobs out, and they'll let you know what state those are in. And there's two job sites in particular that I just want to highlight for you. One of them is cannajobs.com, CANNAJOBS, and another one is THCjobs.com. Okay, go check them out, check out those websites. They'll give you a lot of information about how and where the jobs are. The final thing that I want you to do, if you're serious about a job in the cannabis industry, is this: get formal education in cannabis. Now, how do you do that? Well, I will tell you, okay? There's an institute, and there's a few institutes, but two in particular I want to highlight for you. One is called the Cannabis Career Institute, and you can find them at CannabisCareerInstitute.com, and they provide a lot of business training for people in the cannabis industry. And then there's another one called Oakstertown University. They are a internationally known forerunner in the cannabis education industry. They also do a lot of advocacy as well, and I want to point something out to you. Both of these places are actually not accredited. Now, when you decide on what college or school or continuing professional education kind of place you want to go to, one of the things that you hear drilled in your head a lot is make sure it's accredited, make sure it's accredited, accredited. That's a big deal. It really is a big deal. However, there is an exception to the rule sometimes. And let me tell you that in this case, these two schools, particularly Oakstertown University, is a very good place to get some formal education on how to succeed in the cannabis industry, what it entails, everything from classes in law, politics, history, horticulture, methods of ingestion, science, patient relations for medical marijuana, business and operations, all of that from a cannabis perspective. It's not accredited, but these schools and the faculty that they have and the lesson plans and all of that is actually very legitimate. Have to keep in mind this. If there's something that is illegal, largely illegal for the most part, can you really expect a place, even if it's good, to be accredited? No, you can't. So this is where, depending on how passionate you are about this industry, sometimes you have to jump in there with a leap of faith. So get ready, because this marijuana industry, it's coming at us really fast. So if you're interested in it, you want to be ready when it happens. Another thing, if you're pursuing a job in the marijuana industry, or if you're already deep into it, I want to hear from you. I'd love to have you on the show and to talk with you a little bit more about the industry and your experience or what you've been trying to do. I think it would be of interest to a lot of folks out there. All right, now for the next section. Ask the Career Architect. We have a question from Fatu. She's from Ghana, and she's recently moved to the United States, and she asks this. I found my passion, and it's starting a nonprofit organization for families in need. I have asked everyone I know for help. I've been pretty aggressive about it, and I'm starting to worry that some of them who agreed to help won't help when the time comes. Should I get them to sign a contract? If so, what type of language should I use? Well, Fatu, I appreciate your question, and I'm really happy and happy for you that you found your passion and that you know what it is, because a lot of people don't, and so that's really a gift to have that information. You mentioned the word aggressive in terms of getting people to help you. Now, I know that you're passionate about this, but not everyone is going to share your passion. Some will and some won't. And you don't want to set up your nonprofit for failure by trying to rely on people who you're not sure that they will be there for you when you need them. Signing a contract actually is not a guarantee that people will help you when the time comes. There are other things that can help you to get them to help you besides signing a contract. In terms of a nonprofit and what you want to do, you said you want to help families in need. Finding someone else who shares that passion is probably going to be more effective than an actual contract. And if you feel in the first place that you even have to sign a contract with someone because you're not sure, or you just have an idea, a gut feeling that they're not going to help you when the time comes, then maybe you don't want them on your team. Maybe you don't want to give them a really important role that if they can't follow up with it, it's not going to be the end of the world for your nonprofit. So you shouldn't need a contract. If you do feel you need one, you may want to just have second thoughts about that or have a backup, okay? And be careful about being so aggressive with people about it. You can ask people to help you, and when people help, let them help with what they're able to help. If you pressure them to overpromise, then that's not really helping you. So be careful about that. In terms of the type of language you should use, when you're building and creating a nonprofit, there are so many awesome resources out there. Contact your school if you're in school. Contact your church, other organizations. There are organizations that help other organizations get started. The Small Business Administration, even though they're for small businesses, there's still a lot of information you can get that may help you. Have someone review your contract language for you, someone who has experience with this kind of specific thing, and I think that will go a very long way into helping you to decide what language you use. But again, you may not even need a contract. Follow your gut. If it's telling you someone may not be there when the time comes, then you want to have a backup anyway. All right, our next question is from Theo. He says, I'm in the military and I work in logistics. I've been applying to jobs in the federal government in the same field. I receive emails from USA Jobs that I'm qualified, but I still can't get an interview. What am I doing wrong? Well, Theo, coming from the military doing logistics to the federal government, it's going to be different. So your resume right now is probably using military speak. What you want to do is to make sure that your military resume translates effectively to a federal resume. So that means looking at whatever vacancy announcements you're applying to and making sure that you use that same language. Speak the same language as that vacancy document and put that into your resume. For example, in the military there might be a term for something. When you read the vacancy announcement and you see a word in there that means that same term, use the way that the vacancy announcement describes it. Okay? And also, look at the vacancy announcement, see what the duties and responsibilities are, and be sure that you're using your resume and the cover letter to demonstrate very specifically how you meet or exceed what those specific job requirements are. And nowadays, KSAs, knowledge, skills, and abilities, those essays are not required. However, what is required is that you still have to show and demonstrate on your resume that you have those things. You just don't have to write those essays to do it, okay? So still be sure that you cover everything. So that's really it, just making sure that your resume is translating well to the jobs in the federal sector, and also keep in mind what kind of grade levels you're applying to. You may be applying to jobs that are out of your league, or you may not. I'd have to take a look at your application to see that. But it's good that you're qualifying. What you can also do is, if you qualify but you don't move forward with an interview, feel free to call the person who's listed as the point of contact on that vacancy announcement. Call them, they're very friendly, and ask them, hey, I applied, I saw that I qualified, however, I haven't heard back about an interview or anything like that, and ask them what it was that caused your resume to only be in the qualified pile instead of the highest qualified pile, okay? You can ask them, and for the most part, they'll tell you. And then take whatever that information is and try to do your best to make sure that you apply that knowledge, okay? Good luck to you with that. All right, the next section is, how is my document doing? And for this section, we have a resume by Harold, and he's currently a student, and he's asking, how is his resume doing? Is it going to help him to get the kind of jobs he's looking for? So let's see. One thing I like about his resume is that there's a lot of white space. So it's not a whole bunch of paragraphs and big and bulky, so I like the way that it looks. One thing about his resume that I don't like very much is that the formatting is a bit off, so he's going to need to clean this up a little bit. Harold, you have a Bachelor of Science, and you say it's expected in 2013. However, this is 2014. So is that degree still expected, or did you get that degree? In other words, you need to update your resume to take into account the new time period. And under your professional experience, you list different months, but sometimes you spell out September and then you only abbreviate February, and then you spell out November, but then you're abbreviating March. You don't want to do that. Have some consistency. Either abbreviate all of them or spell them all out. And again, your formatting is off in multiple areas. Your education section is not aligned. When you start your name and where you have your address at the beginning, that's not aligned either. And you put lines around the first job that you have listed, but there's not these horizontal lines around all the other jobs. In your bullet points, when you list your duties and so on, you use the word provide. Provides this, provides that. You're using that too much. So you want to come up with some new language to switch it up a bit. You also don't need to have references upon request. That's very old-fashioned. We know that we can, ask you for references. So you don't need to put it there. It just wastes space, and it just looks really old-fashioned. In terms of the things like your general supervisory support, technical support, these other things that you're talking about on your resume, what I'd like you to do and what I suggest is tweak your language so that you're specifying what level that competence is at. Are you a novice? Are you intermediate? Are you an expert level in terms of supervisory skills, technical skills, and some of the soft skills that you mentioned? Because your resume doesn't provide any context, any qualifications quantifying to what extent is your competency. And you really want to make that clear, particularly if you're applying to the federal government. In the federal government, your resume is really your first interview. Harold, good luck with your resume. Thank you for submitting it to the show. I work at Walmart. I applied to a full-time position, but in the last few months, they have been cutting my hours a lot. Is there anything I can do about it? And this is from Latima in Florida. And, well, you know, if you apply for a full-time position and now it's becoming a part-time position, that's the problem. However, employers are able to regulate the terms of your employment contract. So did you get an offer letter that specifically stated your full-time employment would be 40 hours a week? If you didn't, then you know they have a right to change it up. Now, it depends on how severe this is as well. If you relocated for this position, if the hours are cut so much that you can't make ends meet, and if you did have that 40 hours specified in a contract, you know, those kind of things can cause you to have a claim for something called constructive discharge. That's if you end up leaving the job because the conditions working there are just so bad, you know, them not following the terms of your contract if you do have one. Verbal contracts do matter as well. So again, it depends on how severe this issue is. Then you may actually want to speak to an employment law attorney about this to really take a look at what kind of rights you may have, how far you want to take it. However, if it's just the hours and they haven't moved you to a different position, you're still doing the kind of work that you said you would be doing and that they said you would be doing, just the hours have been cut, then it may not be so severe in terms of getting an attorney. But you may want to consider getting another job. The other thing I want to mention is, I'm sure you've heard of Obamacare and the Affordable Care Act. So, here's another thing. Many employers have been cutting the hours of their employees because under the Affordable Care Act, there's a clause in there that says anyone who works under 30 hours, they're not entitled to health care under the law. So instead of it being 40 hours, it's 30. Now traditionally 40 hours is full-time, but under Obamacare, 30 hours is full-time. Now, the Democrats and the others who supported the Affordable Care Act, they had their heart in the right place when they made this clause. They were trying to make it so that not just the full-time people were covered under it, but the part-time people as well. They were trying to include everyone. And again, their heart was in the right place with what they were trying to do. However, the business folks, the business owners, the big corporations, they were too smart to fall for that. What they said is, fine. Instead of providing everyone with health care who's 40 hours and 30 hours and above, because once they're 30 hours, they're full-time, and we have to give everyone who's full-time health care. Instead of doing that, what we're going to do is we're just going to cut our full-time people. We're going to make them part-time, so then they don't qualify. So what the group was trying to do good by what they were doing, it just completely did not go in the direction that they had hoped for. And it's really a disservice to people. I know there's ego and those things going around with that issue, but we really need to just come back and say, you know what, we made a mistake there. We need to change it to 40 hours instead of 30, because employers are not falling for that, and they're not going to do that. And we've seen evidence of that. I've seen it. I have clients who their jobs have been cut, and now they're looking for other positions that are truly full-time. So it's not helping us as we thought, and you may be a victim of this. I don't know the details of your situation, but this sounds very, very familiar from other things that I've seen lately. So sorry that's happened to you, and you may just need to find some other employment that's truly full-time as it's in the traditional sense. In terms of final thoughts as we close for this episode, there's someone named Eric Thomas, and he said something really interesting that I want to share with you. He said, You cannot afford to live in potential for the rest of your life. At some point, you have to unleash the potential and make your move. And I think that's just a fabulous quote. We just can't afford to live in potential for the rest of our lives. We really can't. It takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of emotional strength to just live in what could be. We know we have the potential for more, but we're not really unleashing that yet. And a lot of times it has to do with fear, just being afraid or thinking that, things won't work out. But sometimes you have to take a risk. And you can take calculated and strategic risks by doing your research and educating yourself. There's so many resources out there. So don't live your whole life being a potential. Do what you can to unleash that and prepare yourself so that you can mitigate some of those risks as you move forward with your career and your businesses and all those wonderful things that you're doing. All right. We're at the end of this episode, and I had a great time with you all. I always enjoy myself, and I really appreciate the questions, and I love being able to share the answers with so many of you through this medium. So keep them coming. Twitter, Facebook, email. This episode, we got all email questions for the most part, besides the resume. So keep them coming through Twitter and Facebook too, and video and all that good stuff. Remember this. You deserve to achieve your destiny. Invest in yourself and give yourself a chance. See you next time.